Hi there, and welcome to Side Chat. In this first episode of the year, James and I speak about grit. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and as usual, if you have any comments or suggestions, please send them to sidechat@omnisite.com or tweet to side_chat. Thank you for listening. Hi there, and welcome to episode 21 of Side Chat. It is 2021, and this is our first podcast for the year. Joining me today again is James Molly-Kurt. Hi, James. How are you?
Dr. Austin, I'm really well and delighted to join you again for the first one. Thank you so much.
Yes, wow, my pleasure as always. Now, 2021, new year, we are halfway through January. And this is a time where a lot of people will start thinking about making plans, making goals, trying to stick to it, and also making sure that they are able to start planning longer term goals and fulfill that. Now, one of the things that come to mind is the word grit. I'm sure, James, you are familiar with this term, grit. GRIT, for those who are listening in. Grit is something that has been talked about perhaps maybe about 6-7 years ago. And this is a concept that has taken by storm. Everybody's talking about grit. Anybody you talk to in an organization talks about grit. And most people kind of equate grit with resilience, that you're able to bounce back, you're able to fulfill your goals by the tenacity to carry on despite whatever circumstances you have. Perhaps to give a bit of context, what is grit? Now, grit is a definition or a concept defined as perseverance and passion for long-term goals. Grit entails working strenuously towards challenges, maintaining effort and interest over years, despite failure, adversity, and plateaus in progress. Now, the gritty individual approaches achievement as like a marathon. So his or her advantage is the stamina that the person has. So whereas disappointment or boredom signals to others that it is time to change trajectory and cut losses, and a gritty individual will always stay the course. Now, of course, we are talking about grit concept that was introduced, as I said early on, by a psychologist named Angela Duckworth. And this has taken by storm. She has done a lot of talk also about this concept itself. Now, the development of grit is a very interesting one. Both James and I, we are both psychologists too. This is a 10-item questionnaire, which broadly has two categories. One about perseverance. The other one is more of the consistency of interest, right? Basically, in the long term, what are you expecting in the long term itself? Now, the research has been done by Angela Duckworth and some of her colleagues, focuses on a very, very particular group of people who are first and foremost American population, those who have a very high level of education, and predominantly those who were actually studying. And also one other category of sample that she has used is those who were cadets going into the army. So just to put a premise there, this is the how the research came about and how the grit questionnaire was developed. And subsequently, more research has been done by her, and focusing on the fact that grit is a very important non-cognitive trait, as she put it, something that she believed, and her proponents of grit believe that this is far more important than conscientiousness and also intelligence. Now, this is where I pause for a while here. So her concept is grit is a non-cognitive trait It is far more important than conscientiousness and intelligence. It is able to identify the success of those who are pursuing their educational studies, and the proponents of grit has also claimed that it is also useful to identify people who are working using grit. You are able to tell whether the person is going to succeed or not. So now I want to pause here and kind of think a little bit about this. What I'm doing, so perhaps now I'm going to ask James, what do you think? Grit. It's such a punchy word, I think. GRIT, 4 letters. Definitely something that people caught on very fast about the concept of grit. What are your thoughts about grit?
It's great that you've defined it and the 2 parts of it, because this is important. Because the word grit exists in already. It's not a. If we were talking 10 years ago and we said, "Hey, you're a really gritty person," we would know what that is. Especially in an American context, like you say, where it's a word that's linked to the part of the Americans sort of masculine, macho, persona. And I think the challenge with any concept which borrows a word that's already existing is, as we know, the title doesn't mean what's being measured. And that's the first challenge with grit and its benefit. The benefit is that what it does measure, it actually is related to grit. There is very close overlapping. A gritty person is someone who grits it out. They grit their teeth.
Yep.
In order to persevere, to get through the challenge, and we'll just grit our teeth and bear it. That's where grit comes from, to bite the teeth hard in order to sustain through a challenge. So I think the idea of that we as psychologists we exist in organizations and otherwise to try to find the magic formulas of the human condition that we can identify are related to health and success in whatever we're trying to do in our lives. And then therefore we can look for it, develop it, grow it, support it, somehow moderate it to improve our chances of a better life or a better job. So it's worthwhile for us to be looking for these things. We haven't found all the answers yet. Although, of course, we already have a wonderful battery based on over 100 years of good research on factors that predict success in life, and especially at work. So we got the big 5 personality traits, and of course the monster for success at work, cognitive ability, which is just so powerfully predictive, and as the research to bear that out is huge. Motivation, of course, which we've talked about before, motivational research predicts engagement and of course perseverance in itself. Goal setting theory talks a lot about commitment to goals and perseverance by the nature of the goals that you set, how short-term, long-term, how intrinsically motivating they are to you. So we have lots of factors already that we know can help predict success in education and at work. Those are already pretty strong. The need to look and continue to look for new ways of finding better factors or more powerful factors is a good thing. I think we know in the industry as well, to be relevant, we have to take our concepts and package them so that people in organizations can get them easily, so that they can actually use something and make a difference, to learn about it, to go through training about it. We don't need to be talking to give everybody a degree in psychology and then say, right, now we can prepare yourself for improvement. No. So we do need to be able to package what we do. It is part of the marketing we have to do. So in that way, I don't have a problem with grit. Good. I'm happy that it's come along and they've packaged something up, which we know, perseverance, goal setting, conscientiousness, goal setting theory are very important. Already we know that, even before grit was invented. The data is clear. Conscientiousness is a very strong predictor of performance, and goal setting theory, commitment to a goal, long-term, is obviously going to pull you through. That's motivational stuff. So I think it's good to have it. The challenge that they've got, of course, is that does it really add any value? It's the claims, I think, which is the problem for us as psychologists. If you claim this is more important than a mental ability, wow, you better have really done your research, because you're up against 100 years of proof. If you claim it's not conscientiousness, actually just repackaged, then again, you're going to have to prove that really solidly. So that's where I come at it. I think concepts that are packaged well are useful. The claims that go with them in order to market them are often the most problematic. And I think that's where, from our point of view, it starts to come apart. And there's a feeling that this is, old wine in a new bottle.
Yeah. I do agree with you, because I do get a lot of mixed message from the research I read about grit itself. Duckworth, Angela Duckworth, and her colleagues kind of describe grit is a facet of conscientiousness. And some even say it's a narrow facet of conscientiousness, but demonstrate incremental predictive validity over and above conscientiousness for achievement outcomes. So that is a very big claim there. And as you just said, there's a lot of other variables here when we're talking about achievement. We know conscientiousness is one of them. Setting your goals is one of them. And your motivation itself, intrinsic or extrinsic motivation, matters when you are trying to achieve something. To kind of just identify grit as the main component here, I think it does create a little bit of perhaps misconception for people who don't understand a little bit more about the other theories. Because grit, as I said, it's 4 letters, it's very punchy buzzword. It's good if we are able to use this to promote people's ability to fulfill something, to fulfill their long-term goals. But I think supporting it, people need to understand also there are other theories that actually propel the word grit. I love the word grit, don't get me wrong, but not understanding the rest of the theories only give you one very narrow view of what achievement of goals is. It's definitely not grit. I mean, for example, if I put my head down and I just carry on doing what I need to do as what they propose without thinking about distraction or whatever that comes to me, I just carry on doing it. How about the issue of locus of control? There are certain things that I can't control. I can bury my head down and carry on doing it. How about circumstances, environment? Looking at the work context itself, for example, if I'm a very hardworking person, I'm a very gritty individual. I just carry on my work. I do what I need to do. I laid out my longer term plans. I follow through with what the organization wants me to do. A question here will be, does it inhibit my ability to adapt to the environment? As we know now, we are still going through COVID-19. The whole working environment is so different. And how about my own ability to adapt to all the changes? Does all this not count part of being grit? So I'm not sure just focusing on grit itself as the most important thing, as some of the proponents have said, when it comes to achievement, is, to me, might not be the whole story. We need to actually look at other variables too. Just like we were talking about previously about treating individuals as a whole person. Likewise, we also need to look at other facets of personality that will impact on how gritty we are going to be. And I think this is very important for...
I wish you'd stop saying how gritty we're going to be. I don't like it anymore.
Yes, but I think this is something that's very important for people to realize. It's a fantastic word. I mean, as you said earlier on, it's a good way of marketing the concept. But you need to go dive a little bit deeper, read the research, understand a little bit more where it comes from, and whether is it a new idea. As what James, you were telling me early on, a lot of things that was proposed by the researchers in grit, they're quite similar to what we know about goal setting.
Yeah.
Letterman and Locke wrote in 1991, the degree to which the individual is attached to the goal, consider significant or important, is determined to reach it and keeps it in the face of setbacks and obstacles. To me, it sounds quite similar to what proponents of grit are saying. We need to have the tenacity to do it, right? And it's something that has been done before. We need to go back and revisit what other theories actually support this concept of grit. It is not what has been done so far by Duckworth and colleagues. Not forgetting, as I said, as we always kind of encourage people to look at research, is understand the research a little bit deeper, right? Here we have issues where we talk about the population here, which is Americanized. How is that going to be transferable to the rest of the world, right? So when you want to adopt a concept like this in your workplace, remember, how is it relevant? Secondly, don't want to sound too academic here. Secondly, for us, it's very important when we talk about research. If there's a restriction of range, which means there's only a particular group that's been used, there is going to be a bias in terms of research. In this case, a lot of the grit research is all focusing on those who have high IQ. Does it mean that those who have slightly lower IQ are not going to be able to fulfill those long-term goals or passionate towards that? That remains a question here. And
so that's reducing the correlation in their research between IQ, intelligence, cognitive ability, and the performance goals that they're measuring. So that if IQ is not, if cognitive ability is not varying very much, but grit is, they're more likely to be able to find a correlation with a higher correlation with performance. So that's what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, and I think there are also other questions like how about Bandura's self-efficacy theory, right? People who believe that they have the ability to do it, and we know people who have believed they can do certain things. They excel in that. They don't need to have grit. They can do that themselves. So I think this is a very, very interesting topic here, which is...
Well, conversely, having a long-term goal, I want to be a fireman, I want to save the planet, but not having the ability to do it, or even the self-efficacy. Clearly, I can maintain the goal, but it's not going to do anything to my motivation. It's not real.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So what does the research actually say to back up their claims of, it's more important than intelligence, and it's not conscientiousness. And it predicts beyond conscientiousness. I mean, we've looked at a few papers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just share one I picked up, and what was interesting was that a lot of these papers have been written quite recently, last sort of 3-4 years. So it is really quite up-to-date research on them. The one I looked at, 2016, was Crede and colleagues, which is called Much Ado About Grit. So it's a classic question, grit's here. What we're talking about today, grit's here, but is it really adding any value other than people like the idea of it, and so they're prepared to run with it, which is a good thing, as we said. But psychologically, they basically said it's a meta-analytic review, which is the best we can get. Theory. So they used 88 independent bits of research, independent samples. It represented 66,000 people. So it's a much broader base than I think that you're suggesting the grit research has been based upon. And they found that the idea that there's a single factor called grit, they cannot confirm, they can't find it. So when you're getting a grit score of those 10 questions, they're saying that doesn't really work. You need to be looking at, if nothing else, perseverance, and the second order factor, having a long-term goal. And they found that it was only moderately correlated with performance and retention, of course, mainly because it's very strongly correlated with conscientiousness.
Wow. There you go.
Yeah. So it really, as a meta-analysis, it just doesn't say that grit is a new thing. It doesn't say that grit is even psychologically different to conscientiousness. And it doesn't say that it predicts better than anything else, basically.
Yeah. That is very interesting. As you said, I read another article that is 2020 last year. So what they did was they used a very representative sample, and they found that grit has a negligible effect on educational and economic success compared to intelligence.
That's the big one.
That is a huge one. And this does tell you a little bit more. What they did was they actually compared grit and intelligence to education and job market success in a representative sample of the American population. And they found that intelligence contributes 48 to 90 times more than grit to educational success and 13 times more to job market success. Conscientiousness also contributes to success more than grit, but only twice as much. And they went on to say that, their findings suggest that although grit has some effect on success, it is negligible compared to intelligence and perhaps also to other traditional predictors of success. So it does tell you quite a little bit here. When you're not using the right sample or you're not using representative sample, your results can be very skewed to that particular sample there. And the question here for us being in Asia, a lot of this research are all done in the States, obviously, because this is where people are very attuned to the kind of subject and also concept there. But how is it relevant here in Asia? This is a question we want to ask ourselves here.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important for organization. When you read something like this, it's good to kind of enrich your knowledge and all the new concepts, but always remember where and how can you apply that within the context that you are trying to apply. And I think that is very important. Now, I just want to ask James. James, you were telling me that you're reading the something on web at the on what Angela Duckworth talked about grit itself, and you mentioned two things that she said is much suitable. Grit itself is much suitable for research and for self-reflection, right?
Yeah, this is a good segue to the end for us, perhaps to wrap it up and look forward to how do we use it and apply it, like you're saying. And yeah, it's really interesting. If you actually go to Angela Duckworth, doing a great deal of good work for the world. If you actually go to her website, angeladuckworth.com, and look at she's got some questions and answers section there, and that you can take the questionnaire for free as well, which is lovely. But after all the claims, and now the broader research from the due diligence, if you like, from the organizational psychology community, at least in America, the bottom line that she writes in advising people about taking the questionnaire is, if I can quote her, she says, I think the grit scale can be used for research and for self-reflection, but its limitations make it inappropriate for many other uses, including selecting employees or gauging the performance of teachers.
Okay. That is very important. Actually, I think that is something that we need to highlight here, because I think a lot of people who might not understand concepts, they caught on to this, they start using this, and then they start to determine whether a person has grit when they are doing assessment or employing people. So, as claimed by Angela Duckworth, not our words, it's from her website. She said it is actually used for reflection and research. There'll be restriction. It's best not to use it for selection. So if you're using grit scale for that, please don't use it as the person.
At least that scale, the scale that she uses, the author uses. Maybe there are other scales that people have now developed.
I don't know. Yeah, but it's good to know that at least she has actually come out and said that it is not suitable for that. So people who are thinking or have used grit, do reconsider whether that's the right way to use it for your selection. And as always, we always like to talk about when you're selecting someone, please do not just use one method.
Yes.
Use a plethora of different methods to make that wise decision.
Yeah.
When you're selecting someone.
I would say also that, we said quite right, grit, the concept has made a contribution, there's no doubt in that, and that for some people's situations, it may be really useful to look at in a development context. that can really get some good discussions going.
Yep.
But psychologically, it's not new. It doesn't replace lots of research into motivation and perseverance and the many other factors that are already measurable in the workplace that are more solid and predictive of the outcomes that employers are looking for. So in selection, if you're using a Big Five questionnaire or personality traits, if you're using cognitive ability assessments, if you're using work samples, if you're using some way to evaluate motivation, keep doing those things because you're already measuring grit and everything beyond it.
Yep.
In a far more richer and valid way, reliable way. So keep doing that. But if grit is your thing you want to have a discussion about, if you want to, use it as a topic to explore people's motivations and how do we get over challenges, it may be a great thing to do. But in terms of the pure psychology of it, on the construct, the measurement, the predictive claims don't seem to stand up.
Yeah. Yes. And I want to make it very clear that we are not here to discredit anybody. We're here to share our views on what we think that we want to share with our listeners, our perspective as psychologists, and to guide you to more evidence-based information that we can share. So as usual, James, this has been fun talking about grit for the first session, and I'm sure we'll be coming up with more interesting topics as we proceed throughout the year. Yeah, thank you very much. You're most welcome. And we will see you again soon. And of course, to all listeners, if you are listening to us for the first time, thank you for listening to us. Do download the rest of the podcast. And if you have any comments or suggestions, please send an email to sitechat@omnisite.com or tweet to site_chat. All right, we shall talk to each other again soon, James. Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to Site Chat. This podcast is brought to you by Omnisite Consulting. We are a team of psychologists with a wealth of experience in working with individuals, teams, and organizations in the areas of coaching, executive selection, assessment and development, career transitioning, and workplace intervention. Omnisite Consulting exists to solve the critical issues facing our clients, both large and small. Our approach is to tailor-make each service to meet the requirements of our clients. Our broad range of services and solutions help individuals and organizations to facilitate change, achieve their vision, and optimize performance and productivity. For more information about our services, do check us out at www.omnisite.com.